13 black celebrities who had the most stupid and tragic deaths. What if one careless second could erase a lifetime of genius? A pistol believed to be empty. A household lighter mistaken for a weapon. A forgotten piece of clothing that triggered deadly jealousy. These were not scenes invented for a Hollywood thriller. They were the real final moments of black music legends whose voices once moved millions. Behind the timeless songs were endings so shocking, strange, and tragically preventable that they still seem impossible today. In this video, Golden Black Legends uncovers 13 haunting stories in which fame offered no protection from violence, misunderstanding, addiction, or one irreversible mistake. Before we begin, subscribe, turn on notifications, and tell us in the comments which legendary artist's death has always disturbed you most. Stay until the end because the final story may leave you questioning how fragile life truly is. Johnny Ace. By the early 1950s, Johnny Ace had become one of rhythm and blues' brightest young stars. Born John Marshall Alexander Jr., he rose from Memphis's vibrant music scene with a rich, emotional voice that connected instantly with audiences across America. His string of hits, including My Song, Cross My Heart, Saving My Love for You, and the unforgettable Pledging My Love, turned him into one of Duke Records' biggest attractions. At only 25 years old, Ace had already sold hundreds of thousands of records and seemed destined to become one of the defining voices of post-war black music. His smooth delivery and effortless charm earned him the nickname the Prince of the Blues, and every new performance drew larger crowds eager to hear the young sensation. Yet, behind the success was a man still adjusting to sudden fame. Endless touring, late-night performances, and the culture surrounding many traveling musicians often encouraged reckless behavior. On Christmas Eve, December 24, 1954, Ace was backstage at Houston's City Auditorium preparing for another show alongside fellow performers, including blues legend Big Mama Thornton. As friends laughed and celebrated the holiday, Johnny began handling a .22 caliber revolver. Witness accounts differ slightly on exactly what happened, but they agree on the tragic outcome. Ace jokingly pointed the gun toward his head, believing it was safe. One pull of the trigger instantly ended one of music's most promising careers. The shocking death stunned fans nationwide. Newspapers carried the heartbreaking story while radio stations played Pledging My Love almost continuously in tribute. Ironically, the song became an even greater commercial success after his passing, climbing the charts and cementing Ace's legacy forever. His death also became one of the earliest cautionary tales in popular music, illustrating how a single careless decision can erase a lifetime of potential in only seconds. Johnny Ace's story remains especially painful because nothing about his ending involved crime, illness, or professional rivalry. It was an unnecessary accident that occurred during what should have been a joyful Christmas celebration. For older music lovers, his life serves as a reminder that extraordinary talent cannot protect anyone from ordinary mistakes. More than 70 years later, his recordings still capture the warmth and promise of a remarkable artist whose future disappeared in the blink of an eye, leaving behind not only unforgettable songs, but also one of the most tragic and senseless endings in American music history. King Curtis. Few saxophonists have shaped American popular music as profoundly as King Curtis. Born Curtis Owsley, he mastered the tenor saxophone from an early age and developed a powerful, unmistakable sound that crossed rhythm and blues, soul, jazz, and rock with remarkable ease. Throughout the 1950s and 1960s, Curtis became one of the industry's most sought-after session musicians, recording with icons such as Aretha Franklin, Wilson Pickett, The Coasters, Sam Cooke, and countless others. His instrumental hit Soul Twist reached the top 20 in 1962, while his unforgettable performance on Aretha Franklin's Respect helped define one of the greatest recordings ever made. By the beginning of the 1970s, King Curtis was respected not only as a performer but also as a musical leader, admired by artists across multiple generations. Despite standing at the peak of his career, his life ended in circumstances so ordinary that they remain almost impossible to believe. On the evening of August 13, 1971, Curtis returned to his apartment on West 86th Street in Manhattan, carrying a newly purchased air conditioner during an intense New York summer heat wave. Outside his building, he encountered several young men who had been lingering near the entrance. A brief disagreement quickly escalated into a confrontation. During the struggle, one of the men, Juan Montanes Moises, pulled out a knife and stabbed Curtis. Emergency responders rushed the legendary musician to Roosevelt Hospital, but the wound proved fatal. He died only hours later at the age of 37. The tragedy devastated the music community. Only weeks after his death, Aretha Franklin dedicated the landmark live album Aretha Live at Fillmore West to his memory, recognizing both his extraordinary artistry and the friendship they had shared. Fellow musicians spoke not only about his unmatched technical skill, but also about his generosity, professionalism, and quiet leadership behind the scenes. King Curtis's death remains heartbreaking because it began with something so mundane. A world-renowned musician who had performed before thousands lost his life not during a dangerous tour or dramatic public event, but after returning home with an everyday household appliance. His story illustrates how greatness offers no immunity from random violence. Today, every soaring saxophone phrase he recorded continues to remind listeners of a remarkable talent whose voice was silenced by a senseless street encounter that should never have happened. His legacy endures, but the circumstances surrounding his final night remain one of soul music's most tragic and astonishing chapters. Sam Cooke. Sam Cooke's voice helped transform American music forever. Born in Mississippi and raised in Chicago, he first gained recognition as the lead singer of the Soul Stirrers before breaking into secular music with enormous success. Throughout the late 1950s and early 1960s, Cooke produced timeless classics, including You Sent Me Cupid, Wonderful World, Bring It On Home to Me, and A Change Is Gonna Come. More than simply a singer, he became one of the first black artists to fight for creative control, publishing rights, and ownership of his recordings. At just 33 years old, he had already built a career that inspired generations of musicians from Otis Redding to Marvin Gaye and beyond. Everything pointed toward an even greater future. Instead, his life ended under circumstances that remain among the most debated in music history. During the early morning hours of December 11, 1964, Cooke arrived at the Hacienda Motel in Los Angeles after a confusing chain of events involving a young woman named Eliza Boyer. According to police reports, Cooke entered the motel office searching for her, believing she had taken his clothing and belongings. Bertha Franklin, the motel manager, later told investigators that Cooke forced his way inside during the confrontation. Fearing for her safety, she fired a single shot from a .22 caliber pistol, striking Cooke in the chest. He died at the scene before medical personnel could save him. Authorities ruled the shooting a justifiable homicide after reviewing witness testimony and physical evidence. Nevertheless, the unusual circumstances immediately fueled speculation. Some fans questioned inconsistencies in the timeline, while others suspected there was more to the story than official reports revealed. Decades later, no credible evidence has overturned the legal conclusion, yet discussions about that night continue among historians and music scholars. Perhaps the greatest tragedy is how much more Sam Cooke still had to offer. Only months earlier, he had recorded A Change Is Gonna Come, a song that would become one of the defining anthems of the civil rights movement after his death. His business vision, songwriting ability, and determination to create opportunities for black artists were years ahead of their time. Instead of watching his influence grow naturally over decades, the world was left with unanswered questions and an unfinished legacy. Sam Cooke's remarkable career was not ended by illness or old age, but by one chaotic night filled with confusion, fear, and irreversible consequences, making his passing one of the most shocking and enduring mysteries in American music history. Harry Womack. Harry Womack never enjoyed the same level of fame as his older brother Bobby Womack. Yet those who knew the family recognized Harry as a gifted singer with tremendous potential. Performing with the Valentinos, the Womack brothers helped shape the evolving sound of soul and gospel during the 1960s. Harry possessed a warm voice and an easygoing personality that contrasted sharply with the turbulent environment often surrounding the music business. Friends remembered him as someone who preferred staying out of unnecessary conflict, making the circumstances of his death even more heartbreaking. His future appeared promising, but fate intervened through an astonishing misunderstanding that permanently scarred one of soul music's most famous families. On March 9, 1974, Harry returned to his Los Angeles apartment expecting an ordinary evening. Instead, a violent argument erupted with his girlfriend Patricia Wilson. She had discovered a pair of women's underwear inside the apartment and believed Harry had been unfaithful. Unknown to her, the garment reportedly belonged to another woman who had previously visited the apartment with Harry's brother Bobby Womack. According to Bobby's later recollections, the forgotten clothing had accidentally been left behind after an earlier visit. Harry had no connection to it, yet he suddenly found himself trying to defend against an accusation built entirely upon a misunderstanding. The confrontation escalated rapidly. During the heated exchange, Patricia grabbed a kitchen knife and stabbed Harry in the chest. Despite emergency efforts, he died from the wound at only 29 years old. The devastating truth emerged afterward, revealing that the object triggering the deadly argument had never belonged to Harry's romantic life at all. One forgotten personal item had set in motion a chain of events that no one could reverse. The emotional consequences haunted the Womack family for years. Bobby Womack openly discussed the pain of losing his younger brother and often reflected on how such an ordinary mistake could produce irreversible tragedy. Unlike many famous musicians who died because of addiction violence connected to fame or dangerous lifestyles, Harry lost his life over a misunderstanding involving something almost unbelievably trivial. His story remains one of the saddest examples of how jealousy, impulsive decisions, and misplaced assumptions can destroy innocent lives within moments. Harry Womack was not caught in organized crime, nor did he fall victim to professional rivalry. Instead, he became the victim of a terrible misunderstanding that escalated beyond reason. Decades later, his death continues to remind audiences that sometimes the most devastating tragedies begin with the smallest and most ordinary mistakes imaginable. Lee Morgan. Lee Morgan was one of the brightest stars in modern jazz before reaching his mid-30s. A trumpet prodigy from Philadelphia, he joined Dizzy Gillespie's orchestra while still a teenager and soon became one of Blue Note Records' defining artists. Albums such as The Sidewinder transformed him into both a critical and commercial success, while his brilliant improvisation influenced countless trumpet players around the world. Although addiction temporarily interrupted his career, Morgan fought his way back with determination. By the early 1970s, many critics believed he had entered a remarkable artistic renaissance, performing regularly and recording music that demonstrated greater maturity than ever before. His comeback seemed complete, making what happened next almost impossible to comprehend. On the snowy evening of February 19, 1972, Morgan was performing at Slug's Saloon in New York City's East Village. During a break between sets, tensions resurfaced between Morgan and Helen Moore, the woman who had supported him through years of addiction and financial hardship. Witnesses recalled an emotional argument inside the crowded jazz club. Moments later, Helen produced a revolver and fired a single shot into Morgan's chest. The shooting itself was devastating, but the circumstances afterward made the tragedy even more painful. A severe snowstorm had crippled New York City's streets, delaying emergency medical services, while friends desperately tried to help. The ambulance struggled through traffic and heavy snow. Morgan remained conscious for part of the ordeal before eventually dying from blood loss at the age of 33. Medical experts have long suggested that faster treatment might have improved his chances of survival, although no one can say with certainty whether the outcome would have changed. Helen Moore later faced legal consequences but ultimately served a relatively short prison sentence after pleading guilty to a lesser charge. Following her release, she largely disappeared from public life, while Morgan's recordings continued gaining new generations of admirers. Lee Morgan's death remains one of jazz's most heartbreaking stories because it combined emotional conflict, unfortunate timing, and cruel circumstance into one unforgettable night. A musician who had already overcome addiction, rebuilt his career, and rediscovered his artistic brilliance found his life ending just as a new chapter had begun. Today, every note of the Sidewinder reminds listeners not only of extraordinary musical genius, but also of how quickly hope can vanish. His final performance stands as a haunting reminder that even after surviving life's greatest battles, one unexpected moment can alter history forever. Don Myrick. Don Myrick earned enormous respect within the music industry without ever becoming a household name. As the brilliant saxophonist and founding member of the legendary Phoenix Horns, he helped create the unmistakable sound behind Earth, Wind and Fire during their most successful years. His expressive playing elevated classics such as September Boogie Wonderland and After the Love Has Gone, while his memorable solo on Phil Collins' One More Night introduced his artistry to millions of additional listeners worldwide. Fellow musicians admired Myrick's precision, professionalism, and ability to transform any recording with only a few carefully chosen notes. By the early 1990s, he remained one of the most respected session musicians in American popular music. Tragically, his remarkable career ended because of a catastrophic misunderstanding inside his own home. On the morning of July 30th, 1993, officers from the Los Angeles Police Department executed a search warrant at Myrick's apartment during a narcotics investigation. As officers entered the residence, Myrick reportedly held a long butane lighter, commonly used for lighting candles or gas appliances. In the tense atmosphere of the raid, one officer mistakenly believed the lighter was a handgun. Seconds later, police opened fire, fatally shooting the 53-year-old musician. Subsequent investigations confirmed that Myrick had not been holding a firearm. Although the incident sparked significant public criticism and legal action, the shooting highlighted the tragic consequences that can result from split-second decisions made under extreme pressure. His family later reached a financial settlement with the city of Los Angeles, but no legal resolution could restore the life that had been lost. The irony surrounding Don Myrick's death remains deeply unsettling. A man whose career had been devoted to creating beauty through music died because an everyday household object was misidentified during a chaotic encounter. There was no dramatic confrontation, no criminal attack directed at a celebrity, and no dangerous performance gone wrong. Instead, confusion and fear combined to produce irreversible consequences. Today, listeners continue enjoying the timeless recordings enriched by Myrick's unforgettable saxophone, often without realizing the heartbreaking story behind the musician responsible for those iconic melodies. His death serves as a sobering reminder that extraordinary talent offers no protection against ordinary mistakes. Even decades later, Don Myrick's legacy endures through the music he created, while the tragic misunderstanding that ended his life remains one of the most shocking and senseless losses in modern soul and R&B history. Frankie Lymon. Frankie Lymon became one of the first true teenage superstars in American music, achieving a level of fame that few artists of any age had experienced before him. Born in Harlem, New York, he burst onto the national stage in 1956 as the youthful lead singer of Frankie Lymon and the Teenagers. At only 13 years old, his soaring voice transformed "Why Do Fools Fall in Love" into an international sensation, helping define the birth of rock and roll. Audiences adored his infectious energy, and record labels quickly recognized him as a groundbreaking crossover star. Yet beneath the dazzling success lay enormous pressure. Fame arrived long before emotional maturity, and as his voice changed during adolescence, so did the industry's enthusiasm. Opportunities disappeared almost as quickly as they had appeared, leaving the young singer struggling to rebuild both his career and his confidence. During the following years, Lymon battled heroin addiction, legal troubles, and financial hardship. Despite these setbacks, he never abandoned hope. By early 1968, his future finally seemed brighter. He had recently signed a new recording agreement and was preparing to return to the studio, believing he had one last opportunity to reclaim the success that had slipped away. Friends described him as optimistic and eager to begin a new chapter after years of disappointment. Tragically, that comeback never happened. On February 27, 1968, Frankie was found dead inside his grandmother's Harlem home at just 25 years old. The official cause of death was an accidental heroin overdose. Instead of celebrating a fresh beginning, the young pioneer lost his life only days before restarting his recording career. The heartbreaking timing made the tragedy especially devastating. He stood closer than ever to redemption, yet addiction proved stronger than his determination. Frankie Lymon's story continues to resonate because it illustrates the darker side of early celebrity culture. During the 1950s, child performers often received little guidance or long-term financial protection. When popularity faded, many were left to navigate adulthood alone. Lymon possessed extraordinary talent, but talent alone could not shield him from personal struggles or the harsh realities of the entertainment industry. Today, "Why Do Fools Fall in Love" remains one of rock and roll's defining songs, introducing new generations to the joyful voice of a boy whose future seemed limitless. Yet behind every cheerful chorus lies the painful reminder of a gifted young artist who came within reach of rebuilding his life only to lose everything because of one final, irreversible mistake. His brief career forever changed popular music, while his tragic ending remains among its most heartbreaking cautionary tales. Roger Troutman. Roger Troutman revolutionized modern funk by creating one of the most recognizable sounds in popular music. As the founder and leader of the Ohio-based band Zapp, he pioneered the innovative use of the talk box, producing robotic vocal effects that became instantly recognizable across the music industry. Songs such as "More Bounce to the Ounce," "Computer Love," and "I Want to Be Your Man" influenced generations of musicians, while his signature style later became an essential ingredient of West Coast hip-hop. Artists including Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, and Tupac Shakur sampled his recordings extensively, and Roger himself contributed unforgettable vocals to Tupac's classic hit "California Love." By the late 1990s, he was widely respected as one of funk's greatest innovators and an artist whose influence stretched far beyond his own era. Behind the musical success, however, financial pressure gradually strained relationships within the Troutman family. Roger's older brother, Larry Troutman, had managed many aspects of the family's business affairs for years. As debts mounted and disagreements over money intensified, tensions reportedly grew between the brothers. What had once been a partnership built on trust slowly deteriorated into conflict. On April 25, 1999, tragedy struck outside Roger's recording studio in Dayton, Ohio. Roger was shot multiple times and rushed to a nearby hospital where doctors were unable to save his life. Shortly afterward, police discovered Larry Troutman dead inside a vehicle from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Investigators concluded that the incident was a murder-suicide, bringing a devastating end to one of music's most successful family collaborations. The circumstances surrounding Roger's death shocked both fans and fellow musicians. Unlike many celebrity tragedies involving strangers or criminal organizations, this heartbreaking story unfolded within a family that had built its reputation together over decades. Success, creativity, and shared ambition ultimately proved unable to overcome personal and financial conflict. Roger Troutman's legacy continues to thrive through countless recordings that remain staples of funk, R&B, and hip-hop. His groundbreaking talkbox sound is still sampled and celebrated by artists around the world. Yet every performance now carries an added layer of sadness because listeners know that the visionary behind those unforgettable melodies did not lose his life to illness or fading popularity. Instead, he became the victim of a deeply personal family tragedy that permanently altered one of the most influential musical legacies of the 20th century, reminding us that even extraordinary success cannot always heal wounds hidden behind closed doors. Daryl Banks. Daryl Banks possessed one of the most powerful soul voices to emerge during the late 1960s. Born Daryl Banks in Mansfield, Ohio, he built his reputation through relentless touring before achieving national recognition with the emotionally charged hit "Open the Door to Your Heart." Released in 1966, the song climbed the R&B charts and established Banks as a rising star capable of standing alongside many of Motown's finest performers. His passionate vocal delivery combined with heartfelt songwriting convinced critics that he had the potential to become one of soul music's next major headliners. As his popularity grew, so did expectations for an even brighter future filled with new recordings and larger audiences. Sadly, that promising future ended because of a deeply personal confrontation far removed from the concert stage. On February 24, 1970, Banks traveled to Detroit, intending to visit a former girlfriend. The situation quickly became complicated when he encountered Aaron Bullock, the woman's new companion. Bullock was not only her boyfriend but also an off-duty Detroit police officer. An argument escalated into a physical struggle, and during the confrontation, Bullock drew his service revolver and fired. Daryl Banks was struck by the gunshot and died shortly afterward at only 32 years old. Authorities investigated the incident and ultimately determined that Bullock had acted in self-defense. Although the legal case concluded without a murder conviction, the outcome did little to ease the grief felt by Banks's family, friends, and admirers. For the music community, another gifted soul singer had disappeared long before reaching his artistic peak. What makes Daryl Banks' story especially tragic is the ordinary nature of the circumstances leading to his death. He was not involved in organized crime, dangerous touring conditions, or professional disputes within the music industry. Instead, an intensely emotional, personal disagreement escalated in seconds into irreversible violence. A confrontation that might have ended with harsh words instead permanently silenced one of soul music's most distinctive voices. More than 5 decades later, Open the Door to Your Heart continues introducing listeners to Banks' remarkable talent. His recordings capture the optimism of an artist whose career seemed ready to flourish for years to come. Yet his life reminds us how quickly emotion can overpower judgment and how a single impulsive moment can erase an extraordinary future. Daryl Banks left behind music filled with hope and passion, but his own story ended with heartbreaking suddenness, making his death one of soul music's most painful and unnecessary losses. Little Walter transformed the harmonica from a simple blues instrument into one of the most electrifying voices in modern music. Born Marion Walter Jacobs in Louisiana and raised in the American South, he arrived in Chicago as a teenager, determined to make his mark. Working alongside Muddy Waters and other blues pioneers, Walter introduced amplified harmonica techniques that completely changed the sound of post-war blues. Recordings such as Juke My Babe and Off the Wall became classics, while his innovative style influenced generations of musicians across blues rock and even jazz. During the 1950s, he enjoyed enormous commercial success, becoming one of chess record's biggest stars and earning widespread recognition as perhaps the greatest harmonica player in history. Despite his extraordinary musical achievements, Walter's personal life was often turbulent. Friends and fellow performers remembered him as fiercely competitive and quick-tempered. Years of heavy drinking and frequent altercations became an unfortunate part of his reputation. Although his career remained respected, those closest to him worried that his unpredictable lifestyle might eventually lead to disaster. That fear became reality in February 1968. While taking a break between performances on Chicago's South Side, Walter became involved in an argument that escalated into a physical fight. During the confrontation, he suffered a serious blow to the head. Believing the injury was minor, Walter chose not to seek immediate medical treatment and instead returned to rest. Over the following hours, however, complications from the head trauma worsened dramatically. On February 15, 1968, he died at only 37 years old. Medical reports concluded that the fatal injury resulted from the earlier assault rather than the fight itself ending instantly. The tragedy shocked musicians who understood just how irreplaceable Walter's talent truly was. His groundbreaking recordings had already rewritten the language of blues harmonica, inspiring future legends such as Paul Butterfield, Charlie Musselwhite, and countless others. Yet his remarkable career ended not because of illness or old age, but because an ordinary street dispute produced consequences far greater than anyone expected. Little Walter's legacy continues through every musician who picks up a harmonica, hoping to capture even a fraction of his creativity. His recordings remain essential listening for blues fans worldwide. At the same time, his untimely death stands as a sobering reminder that even the greatest artistic gifts cannot overcome reckless decisions or unnecessary violence. A brief altercation that seemed insignificant at first ultimately deprived the world of one of the most influential instruments. Marvin Gaye. Marvin Gaye was far more than a chart-topping singer. He was one of the defining voices of 20th century soul music. Rising through the legendary Motown label during the 1960s, he delivered timeless classics including I Heard It Through the Grapevine, What's Going On, Mercy Mercy Me, The Ecology, Let's Get It On, and Sexual Healing. His ability to blend social commentary with emotional vulnerability transformed popular music and inspired generations of artists. By the early 1980s, after overcoming tax problems, substance abuse, and years of personal struggles, Gaye had staged an extraordinary comeback. Sexual Healing became an international success, earning Grammy Awards and proving that his creative brilliance remained undiminished. Fans believed another remarkable chapter of his career had only just begun. Yet behind the public triumph, Marvin's private life was unraveling. Financial pressure, addiction, and long-standing tensions with his father, Marvin Gaye Sr., created an increasingly unstable atmosphere inside the family home in Los Angeles. Father and son often argued, and relatives later described the household as emotionally exhausting. Despite moments of reconciliation, unresolved conflicts continued to build beneath the surface. Everything came to a tragic conclusion on April 1, 1984, the day before Marvin's 45th birthday. During a heated argument involving family matters, Marvin attempted to intervene in a dispute between his parents. The confrontation escalated rapidly. His father retrieved a handgun that Marvin himself had previously given him for protection. During the struggle, Marvin Gaye Sr. fired 2 shots, fatally wounding his son inside the very home where he had sought peace. The world was stunned that one of music's greatest voices had been silenced, not by illness or an accident, but by a family conflict that spiraled into irreversible violence. The legal proceedings that followed drew enormous public attention. Marvin Gaye Sr. ultimately accepted a plea agreement for voluntary manslaughter, with the court taking his age and health into consideration. Even today, the tragedy remains one of the most heartbreaking family stories in entertainment history. Marvin Gaye's death continues to resonate because of its devastating irony. An artist whose music encouraged love, compassion, and understanding lost his life in the middle of a domestic dispute with the person who had known him since birth. His recordings still inspire millions around the world, yet they also remind listeners that fame, wealth, and extraordinary talent cannot always protect someone from pain within their own family. His voice lives on forever, but the circumstances surrounding his final day remain among the most shocking and emotionally overwhelming chapters in American music history. Rudy Lewis. Rudy Lewis possessed one of the most unforgettable voices of the golden age of rhythm and blues. After joining the Drifters in the early 1960s, he quickly established himself as the group's lead vocalist during one of its most successful periods. His smooth yet powerful delivery elevated classics such as Some Kind of Wonderful Please, Stay Up on the Roof, and On Broadway, helping the Drifters remain one of the premier vocal groups of the era. Producers admired his remarkable range, while audiences appreciated the emotion he poured into every performance. At only 27 years old, Lewis stood at the height of his career, preparing for what many believed would become the defining recording session of his life. That opportunity arrived in May 1964 when the Drifters were scheduled to record Under the Boardwalk, a song that would eventually become one of the group's greatest hits. The evening before the recording, Rudy returned alone to his New York hotel room after dinner. Instead of resting before the important studio session, tragedy unfolded in complete silence. On the morning of May 21st, fellow band members discovered Lewis dead in his room. The medical examiner concluded that his death resulted from acute narcotic intoxication complicated by aspiration of stomach contents after a heavy meal. In simple terms, a combination of drug use and choking proved fatal while he slept. The devastating discovery forced the Drifters to make an almost unimaginable decision. With the recording session already booked and musicians waiting, the group asked Johnny Moore to sing lead on Under the Boardwalk only hours after learning of Rudy's death. The song became an enormous international success, reaching the top 10 and remaining one of the most beloved recordings in American popular music. Ironically, the biggest hit associated with Rudy Lewis arrived only after he was gone. His passing remains especially heartbreaking because success was literally waiting for him the following morning. He did not lose his life during a dangerous performance or dramatic public incident. Instead, he died alone in a quiet hotel room only hours before recording a song that would become immortal. The contrast between the loneliness of his final night and the joyful spirit of Under the Boardwalk continues to move music historians and longtime fans alike. Today, Rudy Lewis is remembered as one of the finest voices ever to perform with the Drifters. Although his career was cut tragically short, his recordings continue, introducing new audiences to an artist whose extraordinary talent deserved many more years in the spotlight. His story remains a painful reminder that destiny can change forever in a single ordinary night. Shorty Long. Shorty Long was one of Motown's most versatile and underrated talents. Born Frederick Earl Long, he was far more than a singer. He wrote songs, arranged music, played multiple instruments, and possessed an energetic stage presence that made him a favorite among fellow musicians. Throughout the 1960s, Long contributed significantly to the Motown sound while recording memorable songs such as Function at the Junction, Here Comes the Judge, and Night Fo Last. Behind the scenes, he also collaborated with many of the label's biggest stars, earning a reputation as an exceptionally gifted musician whose creativity extended far beyond his own recordings. By the end of the decade, his future looked increasingly bright as Motown continued expanding its influence across the world. Tragically, that promising future came to an abrupt end during what should have been a relaxing evening away from the recording studio. On June 29, 1969, Shorty Long was enjoying a boat ride on the Detroit River with a companion. The outing was intended to provide a welcome break from the demands of touring and recording. However, as their small craft traveled along the busy waterway, it collided with a much larger vessel. The impact threw Long into the river. Despite rescue efforts, the 29-year-old musician drowned before he could be saved. Unlike many celebrity deaths surrounded by controversy or criminal investigations, Long's passing resulted from a tragic accident that unfolded within moments. Yet that simplicity makes the story no less heartbreaking. A performer who had mastered the complexity of music lost his life because of a routine recreational activity that countless people enjoy every year without incident. His death stunned the Motown family, where colleagues remembered him not only for his remarkable talent but also for his humor, generosity, and infectious enthusiasm. The timing made the tragedy even more painful. Motown was entering one of its most successful eras, and many insiders believed Shorty Long still had enormous creative potential waiting to be realized. Friends often spoke of his ability to move effortlessly between performing, composing, and producing, suggesting that his greatest achievements might still have been ahead of him. Today, Shorty Long's recordings remain treasured by soul music enthusiasts who recognize his unique contribution to Motown's golden years. Although his name is sometimes overshadowed by larger stars from the same label, his influence continues through the music he left behind. His sudden death serves as a sobering reminder that even an ordinary day devoted to relaxation can unexpectedly become life's final journey, leaving behind a legacy forever interrupted by a single tragic accident. Every story we've shared today proves one unforgettable truth: fame can fill arenas, top the charts, and inspire millions, but it cannot shield anyone from a single tragic moment. From reckless choices and heartbreaking misunderstandings to shocking acts of violence and devastating accidents, these black legends left us with extraordinary music and painful lessons that still echo today. But now, it's your turn to join the conversation. Which story affected you the most? Which death do you believe was the most heartbreaking, the most unbelievable, or the most preventable? Share your thoughts in the comments. We read every one of them. And if you enjoy uncovering the untold stories behind history's greatest black icons, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Golden Black Legends, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next emotional journey into the lives, triumphs, and legacies of the legends who changed the world forever.